This is indeed a great pleasure. I had to bring a stack of books next to me because Haman's book is now added on to a very significant library of publications on this country. And so I will start it off with asking him two very leading questions. The first one is, why did he undertake this work? What was his thoughts about what he hoped to accomplish? Let him say some words about that. And then, since the book has appeared in Cameroon and has been made available, if you could say something about the response of really such a, one would think, explosive publication in that country. So over to you, Haman.
Thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to pay tribute to Professor Richard Joseph because in 1983, I was a young history student in the faculty history in Yaoundé University, and the main book we were looking for was Richard Joseph, Le Nationalisme Camerounais. Please, Richard, can you show the book? Yes. Okay. That was the Bible of our studies, and I did not know one day I could meet the person that was a mythology for me, and today something like a dream for me to be here, stand at the same level with Richard Joseph. My book has a big effect in Cameroon. It was like a bomb. To tell you one thing, the book could not be printed in Cameroon because all my printers refused to print the book because they were afraid of what would happen. So I used some tricks to go to Nigeria and print them, and come in Cameroon by sea during the night, and that was a very that was a guerrilla issue. But the book is in Cameroon, and I will not say it is sold out by now, but it's doing its effect. The reason I published this book, the reason is that I had the opportunity to do that. And thanks to Charles, who's here. Charles will give me the opportunity to do that by hosting me here for 2 years, working days and nights on the book. The Biya regime is something like a mystery to everybody. I'll give you a scale. Mr. Biya was in 1975 the Prime Minister of Cameroon. When I say 1975, coming here in the US is Richard Nixon times. So you can just believe, you can just see from when one person have his grip on a country. is something, you know, unbelievable. I think it's just unbelievable. And that is why, because my Paul Biya officially, he took, you know, he went up in office in 1982, but from 1975, he was already there. He was already there. So I think it's a case in political science. It's a case in political science, and maybe I thought it was something interesting to know. And I don't know if in my book I gave the keys to open that mystery. But you know, as journalists, as political scientists, we can just give the facts to the people, give the facts, and people, you know, themselves, they will analyze and see what they could think about it. I can only, what?
Right, and so my second question about what has been the response in Cameroon, you know, to the book's appearance. Right.
Yes. You know, from the first copies of the books were available in Cameroon 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, only 3 weeks ago. And within 3 weeks, you know, I cannot say that I have any official effect. The only thing I know is that many copies were bought by the people of the presidency of the Republic. Many copies were bought, and I think they are preparing something. I don't know what. I don't know what they are preparing, but I'm just, you know, I'm waiting. I'm waiting because the climate, the context now, you know, in 4 months, we'll have a presidential election. In 4 months, we'll have the presidential election. And they don't want somebody to talk about the check and balances of their 40 years power. They don't want. And this book is only about check and balances of their 40 years. So they don't want somebody to talk about it because you know, it's a catastrophe. Yeah.
Okay. I said to Haman when we had a conversation a few days ago, discussing, you know, a plan of approach today. And the first plan was to give him an opportunity to share his thoughts about the book. And the second thing was to talk about what I call the Cameroon paradox. And he said, okay. And then I continued reading his book. And then I came to a section in which he wasn't using the term paradox, but in fact, he was talking about the paradox. So I want to say a few words about the Cameroon paradox. He mentioned mystery, and Winston Churchill, during World War II, described Russia as an enigma wrapped in a mystery. An enigma wrapped in a mystery. And Cameroon It is an enigma that has been wrapped in the mystery of poor Biya. And a few phrases about that has come out, because in his book, he even said, "Qu'est-ce que le Cameroun?" What is this Cameroon? And his book is called The Chronicle. And in your announcement today, you referred to it as Chronicles. I think the Chronicles, it's really Chronicles of this man of over 92 years, and who's been in the presidency for over 42 years, and who's been in senior positions of power for over a half century. Now, I refer to Cameroon A, B, and C. Cameroon A is a Cameroon of Amadou Ahidjo. And in fact, after I had published my work on the nationalist movement in Cameroon, which, by the way, Cameroon had a very significant nationalist movement, and then Ahidjo was brought to power in 1958 by the French. And so the regime that came to power had really no background at all in the independence struggle. So when I finished my work, and I knew once it was published, I would not be able to participate in any way in Cameroon's intellectual life, except, en cachette, in other words.
En cachette, yes.
So that freed me to do a book called Gaullist Africa, Cameroon under Amadou Ahidjo. Okay? And of course, at that time, everything that came out would be banned, but Cameroonians had access to it. And then Cameroon B is the Cameroon of Biya for all these years. And it's very interesting that Haman said that Biya has never mentioned the name Ahidjo publicly all the time in power.
Never.
Even though it's one regime, Ahidjo continuation, Ahidjo tried to come back in. And then Cameroon C is a Cameroon, and at the end of it, he allowed himself to share a dream of this country. But I'll give him a chance to respond to this enigma wrapped in a mystery. Celeste Monga, be known to the Cameroonians here present, used the word sorrow to talk about Cameroon. And in fact, I brought a publication here by Celeste Monga. They're all big books. And it's on the economy of Cameroon. And it's about this country with these incredible resources, both material, communal, cultural, right? And intellectual. And this, when you read this book, Economy of Cameroon, is a country with such incredible potential, right? Biya himself, and Haman talks about it, raises the question of inertia. Is his Biya's word? And Biya himself why is a country with so many resources hasn't taken off economically? Of course, he's the man sitting there at the top of this system, right? And it goes on. But anyway, Achille Mbembe, leading scholar, Cameroonian scholar, has referred to the banality of Cameroonian life. All right, so the paradox is that a country of such incredible vitality is one in which there's so much that is so banal as a result of the system. And let me just, one last word before I let Haman speak to this paradox. Some years ago, I got a message from someone who said, you know, he had a lot of experience in Africa. And then he had been in Cameroon for a few weeks. And he couldn't understand anything about this country. And somebody said to him, have you read Richard Joseph's work? And he said he went and read both my study of the nationalist movement and my edited book on Ahijo. And then he wrote to me saying, you know, I'm finally beginning to understand. All right, so over to you about this paradox. And then I'm going to get on to the conundrum. Go ahead.
So what we can call the Cameroonian paradox, I'll just take it in 4 points. The first one is about Paul Biya himself. You know, Paul Biya's rules is ongoing since 1982. It is not sustained by brute force alone. It is maintained through a clever combination of selective repression, constitutional manipulation, symbolic gestures of pluralism, and above all, elite cooptation. The regime mimics democracy while hollowing out its core. Institutions such as judiciary, legislature, and electoral commission were systematically weakened. Political parties were legalized only to be absorbed or rendered irrelevant. Dissent was either crushed or brought under control by offering position, contracts, or treats. The second point is corruption. Corruption in Cameroon is not incidental. It is an institution. It is institutionalized. It is the primary means through which loyalty is brought and power is maintained. Budgets, government budgets, and company and government-owned companies, and there are so much. Budgets are inflated and contract misallocated, not by accident, but by design. Ministers, governors, or even military leaders operate not as servants of the public good, but as intermediaries of a network of clientelism. Public trust is eroded, and the idea of the state is as a vehicle for development is abandoned. Just to give you an idea, we have a highway from Yaoundé to Douala, which are the main cities of the country, and people are trying to build that highway. It's a highway of 245 kilometers. Since 20 years, we are trying to build a highway, and this Chinese company will come and they will pay money to the company, and they will do 2 or 3 kilometers and they will go away. And since 20 years, we are trying to buy a house. It's just one thing. The third point is the worst one, the strategic use of ethnicity and tribalism. One of the most dangerous strategies deployed, and everybody's have heard of what happened in Rwanda 30 years ago, 25 years, 30 years ago. One of the most dangerous strategies deployed by the regime has been the instrumentalization of ethnic identities. Cameroon is an incredibly diverse nation. Instead of building unity through inclusion, the regime used tribal lines to divide and govern. Elites from different nations are picked against each other. Political appointments are used to reinforce ethnic loyalties, not merit. This fuels suspicion with national cohesion and keeps citizens fragmented and distracted. The fourth and last but not least point is the silence of civil society. During the 19th, civil society was vibrant. Churches, journalists, unions, students, trade unions, students, they all spoke out. But over time, these groups were either co-opted, fatigued, or demoralized, or killed for, the ones who refuse everything. The media in particular become vulnerable. Journalists are rushed, bribed, isolate. I will not talk about my experience now because I did it in a very recent book. So those are the 4 points of what we call the Cameroonian paradox. I'm not sure everything is inside, but I'm just trying to summarize and to make a synthetic way to understand what's happening. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, my last question, because we want to allow persons listening to, raise their questions, is what I call the conundrum. And in Haman's book, the way he brings up the conundrum is, quand est-ce que cela va finir? When is this going to end? It's a sense of people being trapped. And trapped in performance. You really have a choice. Go into exile, go abroad, and live a normal life, or stay at home and go into exile internally, which means you have to just be involved in performance. And so, by the way, another books I brought, for the first time I had to get a roll-on to bring the books, but it's this giant book here. And this is the report of I call it the France-Cameroon Historical Commission, that Paul Biya was able, well, it was really Macron, but to establish. And you had this historical commission, 14 members, Cameroonian historians, and really looking at Cameroon 1945 to 1971. Really, what happened in Cameroon. I've never seen a study of this nature before. It's really a truth commission, extraordinary. And Biya was able to perform on January 28th of welcoming this report. And this report is really about the horrors that have been committed in his very own country. But anyway, the conundrum is, what next for Cameroon? And I raised that because, we have an administration in the US now, and, the president of the US, I avoid calling his name whenever I can, but anyway, but in his recent visit to the Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Emirates, and so on, I really said, no one is going to come telling you how you should live. Really, very explicitly, you could call it, the doctrine. We will not be telling you any longer what you can live. Okay? So the system in Cameroon is a system which has been able to maneuver through all of these governments. And like I said, going back to Ahidjo, you're really going back to 1958, you're going back to the middle of Eisenhower's second term. This is how long this regime, right, this system has been in place. So, Haman talks about what are some of the options for Cameroon, because eventually, even Biya cannot overcome nature. And he goes through some of the options, and then he expresses his dream that this country could finally emerge. Think of it as, a butterfly emerging from this chrysalis of domination and corruption and all the rest. Okay? So I'd like you to just end before we open it up, to the audience. Your thoughts, on quand est-ce que ça va finir et comment?
Really, nobody knows. Nobody knows. Even Mr. Biya himself, he cannot know what will happen. It will be taking place minute by minute. Nobody knows. I will take everybody back in 1945 during World War II, before the first the bomb on Hiroshima. Nobody knows how it could be after the bomb, because it was the first experimentation of that type of thing. It is the same thing today. Nobody knows what will happen after Mr. Biya. But from the back, from what you said, we can see that there is a continuum from La France Gaulliste, le Cameroun de Haïdjo, le Cameroun de Biya, and there is something, it's a main part. And what is that? It is a simple thing. We have a country with resources, we have a population, and we have a group of people having a grip on all these resources and sharing all these resources between them. It is simplest, it is simplest like that. How these people, how this majority could one day become the master of our destiny. That is the thing that is Cameroonians are fighting since 1944, Brazzaville, la Conférence de Brazzaville, yes, since 80 years. We are still fighting behind that objective. That is to say that Mr. Biya, 92 years old, when he will not be there, I think the system will continue. If the people don't react to take their destiny in their hands. I think after Biya, we can have another Biya, because when you say yes, because from Aijo to Biya, Biya is just a more corrupt Aijo. It's a more corrupt Aijo. Biya is a more corrupt Aijo. And I think after Biya, we can have a more corrupt Biya. And that's the worst thing, to have, very talented people. Cameroonians they're skilled, very skilled people, and they are, all over the world trying to do something for themselves. And home, they have nothing. Today, if you go in Yaoundé today, the capital city, people are not taking out the waste. The waste are there, and it's a very difficult situation. To say one thing, can we have any hope? Can we have any hope of by seeing what is happening these those Sahel states with those young military men taking power here and there? I don't know. If it is the way, I don't know if it is the way. But we cannot say today we have a very optimistic. We can have a very optimistic. I think something optimistic about the country. That is how I feel right now.
All right. Well, let's thank you very much, Haman. And I think we're going to open it up to the audience. This is the process to let people hear, and then I know you have people online who can ask questions. So is this someone who is going to be managing? You are. Wonderful. Go ahead.
Thanks for that conversation. I think of Haman's book as a sequel to a great history about Cameroon. So I'm curious, as a journalist, you've mentored all these Cameroonian journalists who are operating in this very grim situation, right? So I have two questions. How do they keep going? What stops the regime from threatening them in the way they threatened you out of the country? And number two, what keeps them going? I have a lot of friends who are in much better situations covering, for example, politics in the US, thinking about getting out because of the pressures of doing the job. And this is orders of magnitude different, right? So maybe you can speak about some of those young journalists who are continuing to keep the paper going.
Thank you, Derek. What your first question? When you are a journalist in Cameroon, they give you the choice. They give you the choice of being corrupt and work, and trying to do your work and kick out. That is the alternative right now. Coming to the case of the young journalist dealing with the issue, I would like to pay them a very big tribute, because one of the weapon the government used to weaken the independent press is to cut off the resources. You know, in Cameroonian economics, the government is the owner of, you know, the main companies. And it is very simple to do it, as you will not have adverts. I will tell you something. Today, the main customer of Le Jour newspaper is curiously the presidency of Republic of Cameroon. Yes, they are every day, they are buying hundreds of copies of my newspaper. Yes. And at the end of the month, if they don't pay my bill, we could not be able to pay the journalists. Wow. So every day they are looking at you and saying, okay, you said this, you don't say this. But from my way, I just said to the journalists, do your work, do your job, and we will see. So every day, it works. It is, you know, something like that. It is something like that. That's why we said it's a very complex system. They know that if they want my newspaper to end tomorrow, they will do it. They can do it. But they will just leave, you know, just small way to break a bit. And when they want, they can just do this. And you will say, I cannot break, and they will open it again. And you will break a bit. And that, you know, we are just in their hands as, you know, puppets.
Okay, thank you. Another question, yeah.
Merci, bonjour. Je vais rendre justice à notre langue commune, le français, héritage du colonialisme, de la colonisation française. Haman, en écrivant ces ouvrages, qu'est-ce que vous souhaitez dire au monde au sujet de votre pays? C'est la première question. La deuxième concerne les hypothèses possibles. On a vu la fin du règne de Kadhafi, c'est terminé dans le sang. On a vu après un long règne, Oued au Sénégal est parti, et la société sénégalaise a cru dans la démocratie, a fait confiance à la démocratie et inscrit son futur dans un nouveau leadership. Pourquoi est-ce si difficile au Cameroun?
You want to translate it first for the audience?
Yeah, I will try to do so. My friend from Haiti said, first of all, we inherit from France a colonial language, and he wanted to use that language to ask me why in countries like Senegal we have, you know, something like a light talking about democracy, because Senegal, since independence, even has been trying to have a democratic experience. And today, the country is, you know, something like an example. That is the first question. And the second question is, what is the message, the testing?
What is your legacy?
What is my legacy?
Your legacy to your fellow journalists, what is your legacy to the world?
To the world. I would just say that Senegal, just as Cameroon, has a French colonial history. maybe Leopold Sédar Senghor, the first president of Senegal, he was a poet, he was a poet, and maybe during Leopold Sédar Senghor years, I don't know, maybe in the Senegal is a poor country. Senegal don't have resources, the same resources as Cameroon. So maybe the grip of France, was not, as the same grip as in Cameroon. I think the chance of Senegal was his poverty. There was nothing in Senegal to go and get. Senegal have groundnuts and nothing else, and a bit of beach. The beach, you can go in the Atlantic Oceans and take some fish. That's the only thing. That's the only thing Senegal has. But Cameroon has everything: gold, diamonds, petrol, and everything. I think the autodetermination of the Senegalese people, I think, is I think we have a civil society, more stronger civil society than in Cameroon. There were no money in Senegal to corrupt people. Otherwise, in Cameroon, there is always money to corrupt inside and outside. I think that is the balance, that is the difference between Cameroon and Senegal. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You raised a lot of questions embodied here. Let us hear from someone else. And maybe we'll take a couple of questions now, so we can get as many in as possible. So go ahead, sir.
So, great discussion, Haman. As we're sort of talking about comparing Cameroon and Senegal, I'd like to ask you to make an alternative comparison. So Equatorial Guinea, super wealthy country, but has suffered greatly for decades under the Nguemas. How do you see, one, the status of journalists in Equatorial Guinea versus Cameroon on the one hand, and what do you see as the next few years or next few decades in terms of prognosis for any kind of reform in your country versus, say, Equatorial Guinea, which I think of as one of the other extremes compared to Senegal, for example.
Okay, thank you. Let's take a couple more while you're reflecting on your answer. Yeah. Could we just get a couple more questions so we can get some more? Go ahead.
Yes, when I was in Cameroon, I was overwhelmed with the number of businesses that I found the Chinese are buying from the Cameroonian people. And I'm wondering how that's going on in the government and how the government's dealing with that.
With Chinese.
You said the Chinese.
Chinese.
Yes. Okay. A third question that we could let him go. All right, go ahead, sir. Why don't you get that one? Yeah, all right.
Thank you very much, Aman. I'm coming from Cameroon. I experienced from there the impact of the book on the society, on peoples, and on all we can talk about scenarios of after Biya. Because the main discussion now in Cameroon is how the country is going to be after Biya. Is the country going to survive from Biya, or the country going to continue being a country after Biya? Because what we found in the book, I've already read it, is that the Biya regime, the difference with Aïdio's one is that the Biya is preparing to disappear with the country at the same time. And the difference between this year election and the previous one is that I think we feel as if the people is ready to take his destiny into his hands. So, it's not a real question, it's just an observation. Haman is a journalist, so he's not a political analyst or activist. So it's normal to say that if Biya was the corrupted Aidio, maybe someone can come and be the worst Biya and destroy the country. But what we feel from the home is that there's a determination, which means that the next 3 or 4 months are going to be something political lecturers must analyze for future years.
Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead, Haman.
The last one.
Yeah. Well, let him take those 3. That's a lot, and then we add some others. Go ahead. Go ahead, Haman. Go ahead.
Fine, okay.
Yeah.
I'll just say Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea. You know, in Cameroon, we even have a press and we have something, but in Equatorial Guinea we have nothing. We have nothing in Equatorial Guinea. In Equatorial Guinea, we have Obiangema's and Sons system and nothing else. And you will not try to do something or to say something for them. They will kill you simply. That is the system in Equatorial Guinea. You know, in Cameroon, the things are more soft. The things are more soft in Cameroon. So we cannot compare. We cannot compare. In Cameroon, we can have the way to even do something like bread. We cannot bread in Equatorial Guinea. That is the comparison. About Chinese, you know, the Cameroonian authorities are very comfortable with Chinese because the Chinese, they are not afraid or ashamed of, you know, corruption problems. They don't think the Chinese will come, they will say, how much? And you will just say to the Chinese how you want the money. You want cash or you want the money somewhere in Hong Kong or everywhere. Even if you want the money here in the US, they will see a way to give you the money here. So the Chinese, they are very free about corruption. That's why you will come in Cameroon by now, and we see all the public works, all the big public work, the projects are you know, the Chinese company are there. And there is something very funny. We had a second bridge on Vuri in Douala. We have a second bridge on Vuri in Douala, and the company who granted the work was a French company, but the French company gave the work to a Chinese company. So you can, from that, you can just see the quantity of money we went to you know, first we bribed the French, and the French went to bribe the Chinese, and you know, some funny things it is a system, it's a very complicated system. But the Chinese are there, and all the big works in the country are, Chinese company are there. But I'm telling you about a highway. We are trying to construct a highway between Douala and Yaoundé, a 245 highway. We are trying to construct the highway since 20 years. Since 20 years.
Okay. There was one question. Did you, the gentleman saying about what he anticipates will come for Cameroon, that that it might fall apart, that it might not be a country? Go ahead.
I don't think so. That is not my opinion. I think he's talking about something like Somalization or Haitization of the country. What is the model you are talking about? I think people in Cameroon, there is a minimum of wealth that can permit to people, to have food. The only problem is the government. What I think properly, the different factions inside the government, they will fight between them, and there will be a way. There will be a way for the people. That is what I think about the future of Cameroon. But I don't know the model. Maybe there will be the Cameroonian model.
Okay, let's get the question here.
Felix, yeah.
Thank you. I don't know, trying to see what's going to happen after Biya. Honestly, I don't even think the regime can tell you because the situation in Cameroon is not like any other place. Haman went through sort of demonstration over there, but to help us understand a little bit what was the journey of Cameroon since so many years. My question is going actually to Mr. Richard Joseph. You have been reading Haman books, and since yourself you start writing about Cameroon long time ago. So since you have been reading this book, what is your take since then? The first book you wrote about Cameroon till now, when you are reading about what happened to Cameroon since then. Thank you.
Okay, we're switching roles here. But I'm still in my, Haman Mana space. And at one point he said that Cameroon is a unique microcosm,
Yes.
particular. So translating a unique microcosm. And what Haman said, this is his last comment here of, is there going to be a Cameroon way in going forward? Because there has been a Cameroon way in holding back this country for all these years, right? And so my sense is that, I mean, just as if you just take the issue of how Cameroonians have had to function of not knowing while knowing. It's been, the fact, for example, of, I mean, both of my books were banned, but both of my books, Cameroonians found a way to get access to it and circulate it. And so there is this, there's this duality in Cameroon, that they've been doing for a long time. And I don't think, Haman is, he gives you some options. But my sense is, and in Africa, we need some unique ways of moving forward, no question, right? We have many across the country. So, by the way, I am going to be resuming my writing on Cameroon. Because I have my archives to deal with, but I also have a book that I want to do, and I'm dealing with the ideas of agency and hegemony. Right? Agency, in Cameroon, and then the hegemony, German, French, Ethiopia that they've been under. And so, my contribution is another contribution coming forward is just being able to, just to enter that conversation of Cameroonians knowing that how much they have been, demonstrating such agency in so many areas, but never been able to manifest it in their political life, So let me stop there. Okay, I think we probably have time for just one or two questions. Go ahead, Sean. Yes.
I'm sorry, really quickly.
Oh, sorry.
We have a question.
Okay, go ahead there. Well, let's take that and then we'll get to Sean Henrietta's question.
Okay, so this is from Mr. Mumba.
Okay.
Thanks to Richard Joseph for moderating this event. He's a true lover of Cameroon and nationalist Cameroonians respect him. The question to Haman, can you elaborate on what Cameroonian diaspora members can do to encourage and support systems-wide change in the country from afar?
Okay, good. And let's take Sean's question. Go ahead. And then.
Thanks so much for this conversation, and thanks particularly Haman for doing this work. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about France Afrique. So Professor Joseph invoked the name of Macron, and insofar as it seems like France is trying to kind of rebuild in some ways France Afrique, and having lost so many of its former clients in the region, how heavy of a hand do you think France is going to end up trying to play in the post-Biya transition?
What the question about the diaspora? Richard was saying that Cameroonians have many talents. They are skilled people, and what they have done, what they have said, they talk about another countries, they are not able to do the same thing for their country, and that is true. But from now, the diaspora is doing a lot, I think, because at the very lower scale, many families in the countries in Cameroon, they are surviving because at the end of the month, the Western Union check will come and they will survive with it. That is something the diaspora is doing. But I think this diaspora can do more. They can do more, by trying to how to construct, to build an international civil society with we can be more vocal on what is happening in Cameroon. We know that they cannot be acting by their votes because of these tricky situation. You know that when you are a Cameroonian, if you have another person, if you are claiming another nationality, you will lose your Cameroonian nationality. You know, they cannot act by their right of vote, but they can do many things, you know, by being even more vocal. It will be something good. But I think most of the Cameroonian people going out, they are just going out, you know, to have a better situation, and you know, I will not say they will just try to have more food here in the US, and I think they should try. They should try to do better, because I've seen how the Senegalese, we talk about Senegal again. The Senegalese has been doing a lot about the new, because I saw how in New York, the Senegalese, you know, they organize themselves to give support to people in Senegal politically, not only by providing food, but politically.
Could you get on to Macron now?
Yes, Macron. The Cameroon, France, and this, you are the specialist of relations between Cameroon and France. I think in the balance, France will continue to be a very important weight. Why? People don't say that. People used to hide that the most important logistic military basis of France is in Cameroon, in Douala. And without in France has a really military grip on Cameroon, and their policy right now is just trying to look and see what is the most strong, what is the strongest person holding the power, and they will be with that person. That is their policy by now. I think they are just, you know, I will not say they will take the strongest, they will be with the strongest person. They will be with the strongest person. Yeah. The person who's able to preserve their interest, and their very big interest is that logistic military base, and, you know, their companies in Cameroon. Because at the end of the day, the wealthy of Cameroon is in French hands today, even today. The banks, the telephone operators, mining. They're all in France. They're French companies. Yes.
Okay, so a suggestion to Haman from a fellow author on his country. All right, his book is about 800 pages, and it covers a lot of topics. You know? And some of them, what he had to say about waste, he's probably written one of the most interesting discussions about a country's, the accumulation of waste and a whole sort of, you know, organization that goes on around that and so on. Anyway, there's just a lot in the book. So here's my challenge for my fellow author, Cameroon, is his current book is a book that Cameroonians would delve into, and especially, you know, Cameroon, Francophone Cameroons who are French. What we need from Mana is a book that is accessible, and also there's need for English version of his book. But wait a second, let me finish though. And the reason why I put these two books here, because I have Jean-François Biya, book is L'État au Cameroun, which is the Cameroon state, about 300 pages. And then there's Richard Joseph's book, and this is the French version, which is longer than the English version, which is a little under 400 pages book. So we need a version of his book that is really, you know, really accessible and also made available in English. I think because there is nothing, you know, there's nothing that compares to what he has. But the fact is what he has is really not going to be accessible to many of the people who should be reading it. Go ahead, Evan.
Fortunately, Deborah is here.
Good.
And she was the first person who, you know, she had that feeling. And fortunately, she gave the opportunity to translate this book.
Good.
And there was a tender, and a company, a translation company, led by a Cameroonian.
Okay.
But in Canada, they made the first version of the translation, and Deborah was not okay with that. She was not okay with that translation because she thought the version was too Cameroonian. That is, too literal. Too literal. Yeah. Yes, she wanted it in a more I don't know, comprehensive, international, I don't know. And that's why they went back again and they are editing the version. And I think in 2 weeks, yes, in 2 weeks, maybe in 2 weeks, the English translation will be.
All right, okay. All right, so
thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. All right, so great minds think alike. Thank you.
And I would like.
Let me hear. She has a question. You want to take her question before we wrap up? Yeah, this will have to be the last question. Come on, go ahead. Take your question. And so.
Thank you so much, Professor Richard, for doing this, and thank you so much, Haman. I have a question for both of you, please. I would like to know, what advice do you have, both of the leaders, to the Cameroonian diaspora, and I would say African diaspora that is, you know, sometimes we leave overseas, not by choice, but because we're kind of forced to leave overseas. And I would love to know, what can you tell to an African person who lives in overseas, for example, here in the US or maybe in Europe, who observes everything that is happening in his or her country and would love to do something, but is either afraid or doesn't know what to do. I understand you talk about reading and encouraging people and everything and you encourage us to speak up, but what do you say to people who are afraid? What do you tell them?
Well, could make a quick response and then I'll let you have the last word.
Okay.
And my response, again, I'll give you an anecdote. Some years ago, several years ago, I was interviewed on a program here in Chicago. And during that program, the person, running the program, described me as Professor Richard Joseph, who's well-known expert on Nigeria, and the conversation. And by the time I got home, I had an email from a Cameroonian who said, "What's he talking about? He did not mention Cameroon." All right, so what's my point? My point is that Cameroonians have to reclaim Cameroon, right? I'm not saying, how that's gonna happen, but this project of saying we have to be able to reclaim this country of ours, all right, which has been brought under the system, like I said, since 1958. Just think of that. Every living Cameroonian have known Ahijo or Biya. That's all you've known, right? And it's for Cameroonians, for it to emerge among Cameroonians, what has happened to our national project. And for them to be able to really discuss this project, this gentleman who mentioned about the elections, his expectations and so on, Cameroonians have mastered elections as a farce. In my democracy work, I talk about democracy as presentability. But they have to find a way in which they could reclaim this nation. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. Say a last word. What can I say? This book is not just for Cameroonians. I think it is a book for anyone who cares about the fate of democracy in fragile states. Cameroon is a warning. It's just a case study of how despotism does not always arrive with tanks, weapons, and violence. Sometimes it creeps in slowly behind a curtain of bureaucracy and legal ambiguity, and that is the case of Cameroon. The story I tell in this book is not isolated. Similar patterns can be found in many countries where democratic institutions exist in name but not in practice, where elections are held but their outcomes are predetermined, where opposition is tolerated but is tolerated until it becomes effective. This book urges the international community, scholars, policymakers, media, and civil society to take a closer look at the subtleties of power, especially in post-colonial contexts.
Well, I know this is not his last word. All right, well, listen, so I think we're going to bring this to a close. So, you want to say a word, Deborah? You want to close the event?
Just to congratulate Haman on the book.
Yes.
And thank you again so much, Richard, for participating in the conversation and for all of you for being here. So.
All right.
Thank you.